This is Mac OS Ken.
Worry over iPhone wait times, catching up on Apple Card and EU news, and iMore, no more. It is Thursday, the 26th of September, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. You kind of had to see this coming, despite whether or not it should. A piece from Apple Insider hits under the headline, "Shorter lead time suggests iPhone 16 is least popular since the iPhone 12." Based on a note from Stanley, the piece compares waits for the iPhone 16 line versus counterpoint models in last year's iPhone 15 line. Running through those, iPhone 16 Pro Max has a 25.5-day wait compared to 43.5 days last year for the iPhone 15 Pro Max. iPhone 16 Pro has an 18.5-day wait instead of last year's 32.5 days. iPhone 16 has a 9-day wait instead of last year's 14, and iPhone 16 Plus has a wait of 7.9 days versus last year's wait of 13.9. Props to the piece for pointing out lead times are always dependent on how much stock Apple has, and Apple never reveals this figure, so it's possible that Apple has actually done a better job at manufacturing sufficient iPhones for the demand it has. Still, they swerve back into the Stanley narrative, saying the iPhone 16 Pro Max has a lead time 14 days shorter than the iPhone 14 Pro Max and 7 days shorter than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. The iPhone 16 Pro's lead times are 14 days shorter than the iPhone 15 Pro, iPhone 14 Pro, and iPhone 13 Pro. As for why people who are upgrading, it's looking like the usual reasons. Currently, the firm says people are hitting the iPhone 16 line to replace older models, get better battery life, and start shooting with a better camera. So far, folks they've surveyed are not buying for Apple Intelligence, which makes sense since Apple Intelligence isn't a thing yet. Stanley has an overweight rating on Apple shares. The firm's price target on the shares is $273. Market researcher Canalys is out with second quarter PC sales for the U.S. For Apple, sales were flat by the firm's reckoning. For desktops and laptops, the firm says sales in the States were up 4% to 18.9 million units. That's for all vendors. For Apple, it was significantly less. Practically flat would be the best way to describe it, with sales up 0.5 percentage point in terms of units sold. Canalys figures they went from 2.13 million Macs sold in the June quarter of 2023 to 2.32 million last quarter. Apple was in fourth in the States, according to Canalys, coming in behind third place Lenovo, second place Dell, and first place HP. Looking ahead, Canalys says recent rate cuts from the Fed could or should boost business spending. The whole AI thing could boost spending as well. As for Apple, a piece from 9 to 5 Mac expects a boost in next quarter and beyond, with the anticipated arrival of Macs powered by Apple's M4 processor. Two stories on Apple Card about which to tell you. The first is about a new interest rate. The second is about a possible new banker to back the card. On the interest rate, 9 to 5 Mac ran a piece Tuesday that I accidentally let slip. According to that, Apple and Goldman Sachs are cutting the interest rate offered by Apple Card savings account from 4.4% to 4.25%. The report says the change corresponds to the U.S. Federal Reserve approving an aggressive rate cut last week, and that it is normal for the annual percentage yield of a savings account to fluctuate following Fed rate changes. As for the new backing bank, it's kind of a new version of an old story. For well over a year now, word has circulated that Goldman Sachs would like to ditch Apple Card and the rest of its less than stellar consumer banking business. A piece from the Wall Street Journal says Apple and the bank have talked with a number of potential Goldman Sachs replacements since 2023, including Synchrony Financial, Capital One, and American Express. Last week, when I was off being sick, the Journal named a new potential partner, JPMorgan. According to last week's report, discussions started earlier this year and have advanced in recent weeks, but a deal could still be months away according to people familiar with the matter. It isn't guaranteed a deal will come together, given key details, including the price, still have to be negotiated. As we continue playing catch-up, two interesting stories around Apple and the European Union. Starting with a piece last week from Engadget, the European Commission has a new set of rules for the Cupertino company, and they've got 6 months to get them in place. According to the report, the Commission has started proceedings designed to ensure that the company complies with its interoperability obligations as one of the DMA's designated gatekeepers. The Commission explained that under the DMA, it has the right to adopt a decision specifying the measures a gatekeeper has to implement to ensure effective compliance. One of the areas the EC is said to be focused on is iOS connectivity for connected devices such as smartwatches, headphones, and virtual reality headsets. Saying that the manufacturers of such products depend on effective interoperability with smartphones and their operating systems, Engadget says the Commission plans to specify how Apple should provide effective interoperability that would allow non-Apple devices to easily pair and connect with iPhones, as well as to get notifications. The Commission will also look at the process Apple set up to address developers' requests for third-party interoperability with iOS and iPadOS. Apple will have to comply, assuming it wants to keep doing business across the EU, which one assumes it does. If Apple is found guilty of non-compliance, it could face fines worth 10% of its global annual revenue, according to the report. One of the points of the European Union is to be a bloc, a collective group. So it was interesting to read a story in Bloomberg a couple of weeks ago that had former Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi delivering a report to the European Commission that kind of seems to counter the EC's slap-a-gatekeeper approach. Summing up Draghi's 397-page report, Bloomberg had the former PM arguing that if the EU wants to get out of its decades-long rut of dwindling productivity and economic decline, it should stop focusing on regulating technology and instead build cutting-edge tech itself. The way Bloomberg explains it, the theory under EU Competition Commissioner Margherita Vestager has seen stringent tech regulation as a path forward for European technology. The thinking seems to have been that the effort to ensure a level playing field would help produce EU tech prodigies and value for customers. Meanwhile, Draghi's report explicitly says that competition enforcement can be harmful to innovation. He'd like to see mergers in various tech sectors if they further innovation. He'd also like to see the EU invest big on something of a moonshot factory for the European Union. The piece says he envisions a fast-moving, hyper-focused body targeting on accelerating breakthrough technologies and staffed by top scientists. It is interesting to hear a new idea, though it's hard to know whether it's going to take hold. Yes, the European Commission did commission Draghi's report. At the same time, while Vestager is on her way out as a European commissioner, a lot of her way of thinking has been woven into the European Union through legislation like the Digital Markets Act. One expert with whom Bloomberg spoke says for Draghi's moonshot factory to work, scientists and technologists would have to be at the top, not bureaucrats. And that is probably a tough sell in the very bureaucratic European Commission. And finally, there's money. Or really, a need for money. According to Bloomberg, Draghi's whole report demands of the EU an investment spree and the issuance of joint debt, an ask guaranteed to face resistance from influential countries such as Germany and the Netherlands. People without an Apple TV Plus subscription will be able to watch the Peanuts holiday specials again this year. It's been a few years since Apple and PBS partnered to air the shows on local PBS affiliates, but they have been available to stream for a limited time at no cost. Now a piece from Mac Rumors says the Cupertino streamer is letting that happen again. While planning to watch them isn't as tough as when they were broadcast once per season, the windows are still pretty slim. Non-subscribers to Apple TV Plus will be able to stream It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown through the Apple TV app for the weekend of October 19th and 20th. They can stream a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving the weekend of November 23rd and 24th, and they can catch a Charlie Brown Christmas the weekend of December 14th and 15th. Of course, as the piece points out, Apple TV Plus subscribers can already watch the specials anytime they want. And finally today, one more thing, goodbye from iMore. That was the headline from the last original post from the 16-year-old news and how-to site. Launching in the wake of the very first iPhone back in 2008, says the So Long piece, it's somewhat fitting that we wrap publication here in 2024 on the precipice of the launch of a new industry-shifting technology from Apple in the shape of Apple Intelligence. The site's final editor, Gerald Lynch, sent out a massive thanks to past leaders, including Lori Gill, Serenity Caldwell, Joe Keller, and of course Renee Ritchie, a name so synonymous with iMore back in the day that a lot of people, myself included, thought iMore was his site. I have personally appreciated the work and acquaintance of Oliver Haslam and Stephen Warwick over the years. Not sure what's up with Oliver these days, though I know Stephen has landed a gig at iMore's sister site, Tech Radar. iMore will stay online so readers can continue to access articles from the archive according to the post, and the forum will remain active until the 1st of November. And I don't mind telling you guys, this space is getting ugly. macOS Can, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macoscan. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macoscan.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.